Picture this. You're sitting across from them at dinner. The restaurant is loud. Your food is getting cold. And in the middle of all that noise, something quiet happens. You look up, and for just a second you have this strange, almost physical feeling, like you're sitting across from a stranger wearing your partner's face. Not because you don't love them, but because the version of them that used to reach for you, that used to text you during the day just because, that used to look at you like you were the most interesting thing in any room, that version feels like someone you haven't seen in months. And your brain starts doing that thing. Why does this keep happening? Was it always like this? Do I still love them, or have I just gotten used to them? Am I the problem? And right now, in this moment, I want you to know something. You're not failing at love. This is not a sign that you chose the wrong person. Every couple that has ever loved each other deeply has stood exactly where you're standing. Here's the truth that's going to change everything you think you know about your relationship. You haven't been falling out of love. You've been falling out of safety. And once you understand what I'm about to show you, once you really get this, you will never approach your relationship the same way again. Let's get into it. Here's the reframe that most people never get. Most couples believe that when the passion fades, the love faded with it. They think, we're not as connected as we used to be, so something must be wrong with us, or with this, or with the person I chose. But here's what's actually happening. When two people stay together long enough, the initial adrenaline fades. The novelty that once felt electric settles. And what replaces it, if the relationship is healthy, is supposed to be safety, trust, the kind of closeness that doesn't need to perform. But when something in the relational dynamic shifts, when one partner starts to feel unseen or criticized, or like they're carrying more than their share, the nervous system doesn't wait for the mind to catch up. It reads the room. And if the room feels unsafe, even in small ways, even in ways you can't name, your partner's nervous system starts building walls, not because they want to, but because that's what nervous systems do when they detect threat. They protect. This is where most couples get it completely backwards. They think, my partner is pulling away because they don't care enough, and they start chasing. More conversations, more reassurance, more effort, more trying. But chasing someone whose nervous system has gone into protection mode doesn't feel like love to them. It feels like pressure. And when someone feels pressured, they don't open up. They go deeper into the thing they're already doing, which is pulling away. So the more you chase, the more they withdraw. And the more they withdraw, the more panicked you feel. And the more panicked you feel, the harder you chase. That's not a relationship problem. That's the anxious, avoidant cycle playing out in real time between two people who both actually want the same thing, which is to feel close again. And the way out of it is not to try harder. It's to do something most people never have the emotional discipline to do. You have to stop chasing and start creating safety. Most couples in conflict are not having a conversation. They're having two monologues. Two people each trying to make their point, waiting for their turn to talk, not actually hearing each other at all. And here's why this happens without either of you noticing. When someone feels unheard in a relationship, their nervous system starts treating every conversation like a performance review. They're not trying to connect, they're trying to prove a point. They're trying to get through. They're trying to be understood before they have to understand. So when you jump in with your perspective, your explanation, your perfectly reasonable defense, your partner's brain isn't reading, he's trying to work this out with me. It's reading, he doesn't actually hear what I'm saying. And here's the part no one talks about. The thing your partner is most upset about is rarely the thing they're talking about. What they're actually saying, underneath all of it, is, do you see me? Do I matter? Is my experience real to you, or am I just being too sensitive again? So here's what changes everything. Instead of leading the conversation with your side, instead of explaining why your way makes sense, practice what I call leading with curiosity. Help me understand what this felt like for you. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. When that happened, what was moving through you? What do you need from me right now? Not because you're agreeing with everything they say, not because you're surrendering, but because you're telling their nervous system something it desperately needs to hear. You are safe with me. Your experience matters. I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to understand. And when you do that, when you actually let someone feel fully heard for the first time in months, something shifts. Their shoulders drop, their voice softens, and in that moment, the conversation stops being a battlefield and starts being a bridge. That's when your partner stops feeling like a problem to manage and starts feeling like a person to come home to. Most people in relationships wait until their partner is upset to try to meet their needs. They wait for the complaint, the request, the obvious signal that something is wrong. And by then, it's already too late. Here's what I mean. If your partner has been asking you to put your phone down during dinner, and you start doing it after they get frustrated the third time, their nervous system has already been living in frustration for weeks. You've just stopped the bleeding, but the wound is already there. Real connection isn't built by responding to signals. It's built by reading the signals before they become screams. This is what emotionally available people do naturally. They pay attention to the small withdrawals before they become big ones. They notice when their partner seems quiet and say, "You seem a little off. Want to talk about it?" before their partner has to ask for space. Here's the pattern most couples fall into. One partner feels something, loneliness, boredom, disconnect, and they try to communicate it indirectly. A sigh, a comment, a slightly shorter text than usual. And the other partner, who is not psychic and who also has their own stuff going on, doesn't pick up on it. So the first partner feels unseen. They escalate slightly, maybe a pointed remark, a frustrated tone. Now the second partner feels attacked. They get defensive, and the cycle tightens. But here's the deeper truth. The reason people stop asking directly is that they learned, somewhere along the way, that asking doesn't work. That when they ask, they're met with defensiveness, or exhaustion, or explanations about why this time is different. So they stopped asking. And what looks like giving up is actually a protective withdrawal, a lowering of expectations to protect themselves from disappointment. So when you see your partner pulling back, you don't wait for the conversation where they tell you something is wrong. You go to them. You create the moment they're too scared to ask for. "Hey, I've noticed you've seemed a little quiet this week. I want to know if you're okay, and I want you to know I'm here. Not because you did something wrong, not because you're fixing it. Because you're telling them, you don't have to fight for my attention. I choose to give it." And something in her is saying, quietly, "He actually noticed me this time." That's the shift. That's the one most couples never figure out. Here's a truth that will reframe how you think about every conversation with your partner. Words are only about 20% of what makes someone feel close to you. The other 80% is something far more primal. It's your presence. And I'm not talking about being physically in the room. I'm talking about something deeper. I'm talking about the quality of attention you bring when your partner is talking. The part of you that's actually there, not planning your response, not waiting for your turn, not half listening while you scroll mentally through your to-do list. Most couples think that to be present, they need to say the right thing, have the perfect response, fix what's broken. But here's what no one explains. The thing your partner needs most in their most vulnerable moments isn't your advice. It's not your solution. It's not even your agreement. It's your presence. This is why stonewalling, which looks like cruelty from the outside, is almost never actually about wanting to hurt your partner. It's about someone who has been so overwhelmed for so long that the only way they know how to stop the overwhelm is to shut down, to go quiet, to remove themselves from the equation. Your partner isn't leaving the conversation because they don't care. They're leaving because they've decided that engaging is more painful than withdrawing. So if your partner comes to you in a hard moment and you put down your phone, make eye contact, take a breath, and listen, even if you don't say the right thing, even if you fumble through it, your nervous system is communicating something that goes deeper than language. I see you. I'm not going anywhere. You're safe here. And this is where it gets really interesting. You don't need a perfect response. You need a devoted presence. What does devotion look like when someone is upset? Not fixing, not explaining, not strategizing, just showing up. Eyes on them, breathing with them, letting them know they have your full attention, even if what you do with that attention is mostly just listening. And here's what most couples miss. Devotion isn't a grand gesture. It's the 30-second moments you don't think matter. The moment you put down your phone and look up. The moment you stop what you're doing and make eye contact. The moment you say, "Tell me more about that." That's where real intimacy lives. Not in the big conversations, in the small ones. And when you practice showing up like this, consistently, without agenda, something changes in the emotional architecture of your relationship. The walls start to come down, not because you broke them down, but because they no longer need to be there. That's when two people who were just existing in the same space start actually being together again.
This is the one most couples never figure out. They fight about dishes. They fight about money. They fight about whose turn it is to call the sitter. But underneath all of those arguments is something they would never say out loud, because it feels too vulnerable, too raw, too dangerous. Here's the pattern. Most people in relationships have learned to translate their real feelings into something more acceptable, more manageable, more reasonable. Your real feeling might be, "I feel lonely and disconnected, and like you don't see how hard I'm working to hold this together." But the acceptable version you actually say out loud is, "You never help around the house." Your real feeling might be, "I'm scared that I'm losing myself in this relationship, and I'll wake up one day not knowing who I am." But the version that feels safe to express is, "I need more space." Now here's why this matters so much. When you speak only the acceptable version, your partner can only respond to the acceptable version. They can defend themselves about the dishes. They can argue about the fairness of the chore split. They can explain why this time is different. But they cannot reach your actual pain. Because you didn't bring them your actual pain. You brought them a symptom. So what happens is this. The conversation goes around and around, neither of you ever feeling resolved, because you're both circling the real thing, and neither of you has the courage to name it. But here's what changes everything. You have to be braver than your fear. You have to say the thing that feels too much to say. Not in an explosive way, not in an accusatory way, but in an honest, open, "I trust you enough to be this vulnerable" way. I want to tell you something, and I need you to just hear it without fixing it. Lately, I've been feeling like I'm disappearing, like I'm so busy taking care of everything that I don't remember what I feel like as a person. And I'm scared that if something doesn't change, I'll just keep fading. Now, listen to what happens inside your partner when you say that. They're not thinking about dishes. They're not planning their defense. Something in them is saying, "She's letting me in. She's trusting me with the real thing." And the real thing is always what creates the real connection. Not the conversation about the dishes. the conversation about the loneliness underneath it. That's the door that opens when you stop hiding behind the reasonable version of yourself. Here's the thing about emotional safety that most people miss. It can't be created by one person alone. You can do everything right. Be present, be curious, be emotionally honest. You can create all the conditions for your partner to come back toward you. But if your partner has their own stuff, their own fear of closeness, their own protective walls, their own reason for why they learn to keep one foot out the door, then at some point, the work is theirs to do too. And here's where most people in relationships destroy what they've been building. They do it perfectly for a few weeks. They read the books, they say the things, they start becoming the partner they've always wanted to be, and then they get impatient. They start watching for the change in their partner, measuring their partner's progress, waiting for the moment their partner finally shows up the way they've been showing up. And when that moment doesn't come quickly enough, when their partner is still a little cautious, still a little defended, still slowly emerging from their own protective posture, they crack. They say something like, "I've been doing all this work and you still haven't changed." Or they withdraw themselves, matching energy, pulling back. And what do they just destroy? Everything they built. Because here's what you need to understand. The moment you start watching your partner like a project, the moment you start expecting them to perform recovery on your timeline, you have just reactivated the exact dynamic that was breaking the relationship in the first place. You're making your peace contingent on their behavior. And that's not love. That's a transaction. This isn't a communication hack. This is just what emotionally mature people do. They keep creating safety. They keep showing up. They keep doing their own work, not because their partner has earned it, but because they've decided to be the kind of person who loves well. And they trust that the other person will get there in their own time and their own way. Not dragging them back, not keeping score, not measuring. Just steady, just present, just believing that when the conditions are right, people move toward each other, because that's what humans do when they feel safe enough. And here's what happens. The moment you stop watching, the moment you release the pressure and just stay consistent, something shifts. Your partner starts to relax in a way they haven't in years. The walls come down not because you broke them, but because they finally feel safe enough to stop defending. That's when your partner stops feeling like a risk to manage and starts feeling like a partner to grow with. Here's the most important distinction in any relationship conflict. There are two things you can be fighting for. You can be fighting to be understood, or you can be fighting to be right. Most couples fight for the second one without even realizing it. And here's why this destroys connection in ways that feel invisible until it's too late. When you're fighting to be right, the goal of the conversation stops being resolution and starts being victory. You want your partner to admit they were wrong. You want them to see your side. You want them to understand, finally, clearly, completely, that you were justified. And your partner is doing the exact same thing. So you have two people in a room, each trying to win, each convinced they are the reasonable one, each waiting for the other to concede. And the thing is, in the vast majority of relationship conflicts, both of you are partially right. And both of you are partially missing something. Because conflicts in relationships are almost never actually about the thing they're about. An argument about dishes is about resentment and feeling unseen. An argument about money is about security and control and fear. An argument about sex is about connection and intimacy and whether you're still chosen. So when you fight to be right, you're fighting about the dishes, and you're both losing the thing that actually matters, which is each other. Here's what changes everything. The next time you find yourself in a conflict with your partner, stop and ask this question, not out loud, just internally. Do I want to win this, or do I want this relationship? Because you can't always have both. And when you choose the relationship, when you put the win down and pick up the curiosity instead, something shifts immediately. Your tone changes, your body language softens. You stop defending and start asking, what is this really about for you? What am I missing in your experience? What do you need from me right now? And here's what no one explains. Fighting for the relationship instead of to be right is not weakness. It's not backing down. It's not giving in. It's the most courageous thing two people can do in a hard moment, to choose the relationship over their ego. Because that choice says something profound to your partner. It says, you matter more than my need to be right. We matter more. And when both people in a relationship learn to do this, when both people make that same choice over and over, the conflicts don't disappear, but they stop being wars. They become what conflicts are supposed to be, two people figuring something out together. This is the point that changes everything. Everything we've talked about so far, the listening, the presence, the emotional honesty, the letting them come back, is all upstream of this. If you make someone feel safe enough, curious enough, respected enough, you become the person they want to come home to. Not because you're perfect, not because you never mess up, not because you have the right answers, but because something in them has learned over time that when they walk through your door, they get to be themselves. All of themselves. The messy ones, the scared ones, the ones that don't have it figured out. And that's rare. That's actually so rare that most people never experience it in their entire lives. So here's the reframe that will change how you show up for the rest of your relationship. You are not trying to get your partner to change. You are not trying to fix what's broken between you. You are not trying to recreate the beginning, the butterflies, the intensity, the high of being chosen. You're trying to become the kind of person who creates a different kind of safety than the one you started with. And here's what no one explains. This isn't about your partner anymore. This is about who you are becoming. Are you becoming someone who can hold hard conversations without losing yourself? Someone who can stay regulated when things get heated? Someone who can be honest about what they feel and curious about what your partner feels? Are you becoming someone who shows up with devotion in the 30-second moments that don't seem to matter? Because here's what most people miss. When you do this work, when you genuinely commit to becoming more emotionally available, more secure, more present, it's not just changing the relationship, it's changing you. And what you find on the other side of this work is someone you actually like. Someone who has learned how to love without losing themselves. Someone who has developed the capacity to hold another person's pain without needing them to be okay. And your partner feels all of it. Something in them is saying, I forgot how good it feels to be chosen, not just in the beginning, but now, after everything. Still, that's the shift. Not a better relationship, a better version of you. And that's what makes everything else possible. Here's what I want you to take with you from this. This isn't a checklist. It's not a communication technique you're going to try this week and then forget about. It's an invitation to show up differently, and that changes everything about what's possible between you and the person you chose. When you internalize this, really let it sink in, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop trying to manage your partner's emotions and start creating conditions where they can manage their own. You stop chasing the version of the relationship you had and start building something that can actually last. And here's the truth. The relationship you want doesn't start when your partner finally changes. It starts when you decide to become the kind of person who makes change possible. For both of you. This isn't about fixing what's broken between you. It's about becoming the kind of partner who creates safety so consistently that the walls don't need to be there anymore. And when you do that, when you truly commit to this way of being, you will look up one day and realize that the person sitting across from you at dinner feels more like home than they ever did in the beginning.
Because this kind of love, the real kind, wasn't built in the grand moments. It was built in every single small one you decided to show up for.